Okay, so in this section we are talking about derivatives and what kinds of things we can conclude about a function, or in particular the graph of a function, if we know things about the derivative. And so the first thing is something that we already know. It has to do with whether a function is increasing or decreasing. And so if we have that the derivative of a function f is greater than 0 on an interval, then the function itself, f, is increasing there. Okay, and then conversely, if f prime is less than 0 on an interval, then we can conclude that f is decreasing on that interval. Okay, so these are two facts that we've talked about before, but it's good to just review them. And so what we're going to do is use this fact on an example where we try to figure out where this function is increasing or decreasing. So suppose we have a function f, and we want to figure out where it is increasing increasing or decreasing. Okay, and so the first thing that we do is take the derivative. So we just compute f prime of x, and that will give us 3x squared minus 6x minus 9. And then what I'm going to do, because we want to figure out where this is positive or negative, the best way to tackle that is to factor it. So we can factor out a 3 first, and if we do that, we'll get negative 2x minus 3, and then we can factor this quadratic into two pieces. So 3 times x plus 1, 3, or x minus 3. Okay, and so we want to know where this is positive or negative, and we can see that if we were to set this equal to 0, we would get the points where f prime is equal to 0, right? So I'm not going to write all that out, but if we do set this equal to 0, hopefully it's pretty clear, or if not, you can just do this on a scratch piece of paper. But you would get minus 1 and 3 as the 2 points where f prime is going to be equal to 0. And so since this is a continuous function, we know that if a function is negative, say, on a piece, then it has to pass through 0 before it can become positive. So that forces f prime to be either positive or negative on each of these intervals, right? So we get 3 intervals. So we've broken up the real line into 3 pieces, and on each piece, f prime will either be positive or negative. And so we just need to figure out what f prime is going to be on each of these pieces. And since it will be the same sign for every point in a particular interval, we just need to choose one test point to tell us whether the derivative is positive or negative on the entire piece. And so we are going to create what is called a sign chart to do this, right? So what we will do is we'll have some test points, right? So we're creating a chart like this, and we will have columns for each of the factors. So these are the factors. There's also this 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate those. Well, not actually evaluate them, but we're going to check whether the factors are positive or negative on each of the pieces, and then we will put those together to figure out what the sign of f prime is. So we could make a column for each of these factors, x minus 3, and then the last column will be for f prime, the whole thing. And really, even though I wrote x plus 1 and x minus 3, we're not actually going to evaluate these at our test points. We're just going to check the sign. So, but instead of writing that, the sign of this piece, I'm going to just write the label to be that. Okay, so let's choose some test points. We need something in the interval minus infinity to minus 1. So I will choose negative 2. Something in minus 1 to 3. So 0 is there, and 0 is usually a nice number to plug in. And then we'll choose 4, and that's in the interval 3 to infinity. Okay, so we have all of our intervals represented by a test point. And then we're going to go through each row and figure out what the sign of each piece is going to be. And then at the end, we'll figure out what the sign of f prime is going to be equal to. Okay, so actually this first column with the 3, 3 is always going to be positive no matter what, right? So we can just fill this in with plus signs. So I'm going to use plus if the piece is positive and minus if it's negative. Okay, so we can now check x plus 1. If we plug in negative 2 to x plus 1, we'll get a negative number. And if we plug in negative 2 to x minus 3, we'll get another negative number. Okay, and then so skipping the last column, we'll go to the next row. Plugging in 0 will give us a positive number here and a negative number in the next piece. And then in the last row, plugging in will give us a positive number and then another positive number. Okay, so what we do is to fill in this last column, we look at the entire row. So I'm focusing on this part of the chart, and just imagine we take a positive number, multiply it by a negative number, and then multiply it by another negative number, and what we will get is something that's positive, right? So that will be the sign of f prime. And then next we have a positive number times a positive number times a negative number, and that will be negative. And then in the last row we have 3 positive numbers multiplied together. That will give us a positive number. Okay, and so we'll take this information that we just got and put it onto our number line. So negative 2 corresponded to the first interval from minus infinity to minus 1. So the sign of f prime on that whole interval is going to be positive. So I'll put a plus above that interval on the number line. And then on the next piece, so this is going to be on the interval from minus 1 to 3, we got that f prime was negative there, so we'll put a negative sign over that interval. And then the last one, we got positive. So it goes positive, negative, positive. Yeah, okay. I think I got that right. And so I'll just so this is f prime that we have represented on this number line here. Okay, and so what conclusions can we make? We know that now this, I'll go ahead and box this. This is the result of our work, and it tells us that f prime is greater than 0 on the two intervals minus infinity to minus 1 and 3 to infinity. And by this, this fact we have up here, that means that f is increasing on those intervals. So I'll go ahead and write them out, but right. So we get f is increasing on these two intervals, and it's decreasing. So f prime is less than 0 on minus 1 to 3, so f is decreasing on that interval.